And fully realized you pepper spray her as well.
So
Chicks,
have your wife gone to bed, Eric?
chicks go wild for pepper spray.
It's like if you say like, "Oh, you're kind of heavy." It's okay. I like heavy girls though.
Just give like backhanded compliments 24/7.
Yeah, pretty much.
You know, you're
Then they're
pretty
like,
cute for an ugly chick.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I fucking love backhanded compliments. It's like, wait a minute.
Oh my god, you can read. I never would have guessed. Congratulations. That must have been tough for you. You seem like such a dumb slut. Proof that American education works, right?
But the good one, you're not as dumb as you look.
I fucking hate that one.
You look like not nearly as dumb as you are.
Or like, oh, you're actually smart. Like, what? That's so rude.
Yeah, you don't sweat much for a fat guy.
It's like Quest the other day when I was talking to him about a patrol question, and I'd say, well, blah, 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 blah. He'd say, that's actually interesting. Uh, uh, Shocking, you know.
So, Neptune, why are you on mobile?
My laptop crashed because like the hard drive, like I don't know, or the disk drive or whatever is like fucked. I think I left my. I never replaced the battery, so it's been plugged in constantly, and I think it like experienced some sort of burnout. So now I have to go to the fucking Mac store, pay $1 million to get it fixed. But
I think we've identified the problem. You use a Macintosh.
maybe.
Just, yeah, I don't know.
Macintosh. It's a long time since I've heard anyone say that.
Well,
I mean, I've had this since 2012, that laptop, so it's lasted me a good while without any problems.
Oh wow,
But will it boot at all?
that was a pretty long.
No, there's just a question mark folder, and I tried to fix it, but there's something internally wrong with it, so I can't fix it.
No, it starts and you just see a question mark.
Yep.
So the disk is dead.
Yeah, it won't even read the disk at all.
it has an
So
avoidant attachment
do I just have to
style.
get a new disk and then have them?
Hmm?
Yeah, probably.
They
Do I
might,
just have to get a new disk and then they have to just put it in?
most likely.
That's fun.
You just
Learn
get
to do it yourself.
a used Windows machine.
But can you do that?
I'm inferior TE, Magnus. I can't do that shit.
But can you even open a Mac without?
So all of the options that I had it doesn't work if you don't have a disk drive that's red. So I would have to order the disk, a new disk or whatever, and then open the laptop itself, which means I have to unscrew a bunch of shit and then put it in myself. And I don't know or trust myself.
I know you. I know you weren't being serious with the inferior TE thing, but I actually hate when people do that thing. It's like because Roman does it sometimes. It's like, oh yeah, I'm an ENTP. I can't ever like pursue something because I'm just all about scanning information. It's like
Okay, so you need FI to do stuff. Is that what you're saying?
exactly.
I think he's saying that his NE is crippling more than polar FI.
I know.
That's dumb.
I mean, I guess it's sort of just like ADD, like somebody can't focus.
Well, he said. Well, I was saying to him like when he told me that, I pretty much just said that it's because he's a 7. You know, it's a 7 thing because when 7 integrates to 5, you know, the 7 becomes focused. You know, and actually pursue something instead of just endlessly scanning useless shit.
Yeah.
That's why they integrate to 5 because they actually become focused and single out what the interest and what they actually want to pursue to down to a few different points. Instead of just pursuing everything and trying everything and that kind of stuff.
Who's a 7?
Just a friend of mine that some of these people know.
I'm a 7.
Yeah, but do you recognize? Yeah. Okay.
I was wondering,
Are
anything.
you an SP? Are you self-preservation first?
No, I think I'm sexual, social.
What is he, Neptune?
He doesn't seem self-pres because I don't see a ton of preserving of
I don't know.
himself.
I can only talk from Roman's case, but I think he's I think he's an SP7. But it's pretty funny because he'll endlessly hoard comfy shit. I'm talking Roman fucking he wipes his ass with baby wipes. That's the fucking SP7 right there.
Oh wow.
Because baby wipes are just more novel to wipe your ass with.
No, it's just he
That's
just
true.
constantly hoards shit that will make him feel more comfortable. It's he studies what kind of toothbrush is the best, what kind of diet does he have to go on.
I get what you're saying.
Kind of fattest. You know what a fattest is?
Oh no, I get it. Someone who is on the best new thing all the time.
Yeah,
But-
I've
exactly.
seen that described in the 7.
So it's
yeah.
But it could be that he just wants to find the best thing, so he doesn't have to worry about which to buy anymore or what to do anymore.
Sounds like an ISP.
He's
Yeah.
reduced.
No, but with SP7s is that they kind of hoard that kind of comfy shit is oh yeah, I'm gonna wipe my ass with baby wipes. I'm gonna find the best toothbrush. Oh yeah, my pillow has to be made of this material and this, and my bed has to be made of this, and
Hoarding the tenderness. That's called hoarding the tenderness.
exactly that's an SP7 in a nutshell right there. It's they just hoard. It's pretty funny actually how it works. They'll spend fucking days figuring out what kind of pillow to get or something. It's fucking ridiculous. Not because they actually enjoy scanning. They actually enjoy scanning shit, but the goal they have in mind is always the physical comfort.
Mm-hmm.
That doesn't sound like an ENTP though.
Inferior SI and SP7. I think it makes perfect sense.
Well, I mean, 4-slot SI though.
Because you are pretty sensitive. Inferior SI is pretty sensitive, compared to but they're sensitive in a different way, I think.
So, but Eric, you're sensitive. You're just not aware.
Look, I agree that
I would say you're pretty fucking sensitive.
we seek comfort like that. I agree with that, but I don't think it's that much of a priority.
Well, maybe if you're self-pressed,
Maybe if you are, yeah.
that is
maybe.
your priority.
Yeah, maybe.
But it's Roman. Do you think Roman is not an ENTP? He's not an E.
Oh,
He's definitely not an ISTJ.
I mean,
I guess one could make the argument that he's an INTP, but and third slot SI speaking, but
He totally has that fattest thing where it's because I don't know if you went through this, Eric, but if it's an ENTP thing, but he's been a fucking Buddhist. He's tried every diet there is on the fucking planet. He's tried, he identifies shortly with certain things and then tries them out and then moves on.
Are you sure he's not an
I don't know if
ENFP?
maybe it's no, but I think it's the SP thing. It's he's constantly trying to figure out what's the optimal thing to get basically or try out. So he tries different sets of beliefs, diets, that sort of thing in order to find the most comfortable thing basically.
I mean, I agree that my gut read on him, based on what I remember from him, was NTP of some sort, but he was so it's like I don't see the seeking of affirmation much from him in the way that I would normally expect to see from an ENTP.
I think it might be a 4 and an 8 thing. I think he has a 4 and an 8 maybe in his chart type, or just maybe it might be the 4 there.
Or SO last will do that as well. Like he doesn't, because he's way different on an individual basis. You know that, Neptune, right? Like
yeah, he's completely different. Well, not completely, but I see the big difference.
Is he pleasant when you deal with him one-on-one or something?
Yeah, very. He's very accommodating. He's very nice to talk to, and he always has something to say. And he's always like like with Roman, you could talk to him for like 24/7. You know, like, just like he always has something to say almost.
He actually stopped talking to me because I wasn't as accommodating. He's like, I'm done with FI people. They're too selfish.
You're not pleasant. Yeah.
Yeah, he's like, I'm done with FI people.
He's like, you see, I'm on camera because I have FE. You're not on camera because you have FI.
Yeah, that's how that works.
He's always seemed awfully petulant to me. I mean, that's not necessarily inconsistent with the ENTP. I'm just saying that was my main read on him, I think, before, was that he's mad and petulant about it. And I don't know what he's mad about, but nothing I did, you know, or whatever, but I just got that general sense from him.
Just have...
I think it's just like... Oh, sorry.
I was just saying that I think that I don't know, I think this is something he has from his childhood, but it's like he has this thing where he doesn't like when people are lying to themselves, but like it's like when people are obviously lying to themselves, it's like he just can't help himself to, like, you know, trigger it a little bit, you know, like poke at it, I guess. You know?
Yeah, but who made him the lie detector? I mean, how does he know if people are lying to themselves?
Well, it's not like he's saying you're lying. It's just he pokes at it, and when people get resistant, he pokes more. So, well, why are people resistant to something that they don't feel like is true or matters, right? So when he pokes at it and people get resistant, he kind of knows that he hits a soft spot, right?
Yeah, I see. Well, I mean, has he been around recently or something?
No.
I think it's also like third slot hyper awareness of the social game, and he sees the pieces moving and everyone's playing it, and he's like, well, I'm just gonna shake the whole chessboard and get all the pieces off.
What social game are we playing?
Eric, it all started with...
We just play it without us even knowing sometimes. Like, we play into people's perceptions. We know what's expected of us, what isn't, what isn't allowed, what is. I don't know.
I mean, we're communicatively aware and interactive.
It even invades our sense of self when we're alone, like our social shit.
But just being communicatively aware and interactive isn't a game, isn't trying to game anything necessarily. It's just...
No, but if he sees that someone is not being genuine and is participating in a way that isn't genuine and is only playing the game, or if some aspect of it is gamey, he's going to poke at the gamey part and is like, okay, what is really going on here outside of the game?
And then they'll say, you guys are being phony.
Well, kind of in a way.
But it all, yeah, it's so FI polar, it's insane. Like, I even call him out on, like, every time he writes some FI polar shit, I'm like, but you'll never get it. Like, it's pretty funny. But apparently the talk about romance basically started because I was talking about the Enneagram 7, I think, something Enneagram related at least.
Right.
I don't remember what. But yeah.
I think TI users.
I was actually thinking maybe.
I think TI users have a tough time of getting to a point where they can recognize the validity of a non-TI calculus if it's conflicting with the TI calculus, because TI is the fair one, right? So it's like the TI user is always thinking, the reason we should prefer my approach is because mine's fair and yours is bullshit. But the reality is, it's not. TI users are often oblivious to their own shapings, you know? And those shapings can be very unfair, even if they're by the book, so to speak.
You mean biases?
No, I mean like shapings. Like, if I'm going to respond with a TI approach to some argumentation you're making or some claim you're making or whatever, then my job is to take a sentence that a FI user meant to convey something that's not really collapsible into language, to ignore that fact, and to then take the collapsed version and beat up the FI user with it. It's like, if you're aware of the fact that they mean more and different than what they say, and can accept that that's a reality that occurs, which is tough for TI users, because it's like, well, words mean what they mean. You mean the words you say. There's no other interpretation of it that's reasonable. But actually, for non-TI users, they'll often say things like, well, I know I said that, but I meant something else.
Yeah. But, well, like, for example, a lot of the time, when I'm talking to Neptune, I'm mostly, because that's the FI dom I've talked to the most, I think. But it's just, a lot of time I get it, but I wouldn't personally hold that to be the truth. You know what I mean? It's like, I get where he's coming from, but I wouldn't, like, if I was in his situation, I wouldn't trust that judgment. But I do get it.
Neptune's a good FI ambassador. I always enjoy talking to Neptune as well, and I don't find myself getting into any arguments with him, really.
He's a good ambassador, but not representative.
That's true. That's different. That's a different calculus, huh? Yeah, he's a good ambassador.
But I guess for Neptune, it's the other way around, where he feels like with me, he's probably like, I do get it, but I think that this thing over here has more of a significance, even though the other thing is right. I know the other thing is right. I just think that this thing is has more, like, it's worth more, basically.
Yeah, I do think sometimes TI users focus on the wrong thing. And, like, contextually, TI doesn't... I don't know, it's like sometimes it's the wrong thing to use to evaluate what's going on with something.
For situations,
or maybe not what's going on.
For situations that are best served by preserving ambiguity, TI is not well suited. Because TI would like to eliminate ambiguity, really. Or at least lay it all out so it's the ambiguity is itself non-ambiguous. But, you know, like, emotional shit stuff is fuzzy.
Yeah.
Well, I think, I was just gonna say, I think that all types do that to some extent. Like this thing I used to say at some point, misunderstand me correctly. Like, I might say something very precise and accurate, but that's not everything I'm trying to get across, you know? So it's like trying to lead the person towards what I'm actually trying to say with the thing, and there's more to that thing, kind of thing. Does that make any sense?
Sort of. It's
like you're aware of where language falls short, but you're painting enough of the picture that they get it.
I think you're saying, work with me, not against me.
Or I realized myself that my accuracy is inaccurate for some reason.
I mean, the thing is, TI users who are engaged in non-oppositional discourse want the other person to work with them because they're honestly working towards what they believe is a productive outcome by a productive process. But TI users engage in oppositional conversation are not towards that goal, and so they still want the other person to work with them, but they don't. The other person gets suspicious, gun shy. Like, Eric, you always sound just like this when you start. Some of the times when I follow, come on, let's walk over here. I gotta show you something. Some of the times you show me a new pony. Some of the time you hit me with a stick. And you sound the same when you invite me behind the house there every time. It really depends on my mood.
I have no idea what you just said.
Well, I'm saying like
that might be an any that I don't know.
Trap
it's
people.
It's like polar any trying to follow like an any like analogies like.
Yeah, it sounds like an any thing. I get
Or
that.
any trying to follow inferior SI. That's what.
I mean,
True.
I'm just saying I trap people sometimes. So, like, hey, you like Doritos? Sometimes leads to, oh, cool, because I have some Doritos here. Would you like to eat some? And sometimes it leads to...
And there's roaches in the bag.
And sometimes it leads to, aha! You said before that you didn't like Doritos, and this proves this other thing about you being dishonest, and now... So, it sounds like the same question either way. Hey, you like Doritos, right? Sometimes it's a trap. So, but sometimes it's not. Usually it's not, but sometimes it is. So, it makes people, like, not trust me and not want to answer my questions.
It's a strange thing, isn't it?
It's like with Ken. The reason I think he's an anti-dom is because half the shit he says I don't get.
Or he's just an SI dom and you're ignoring that shit.
Who?
Which is explaining with inferior NE.
I have no idea, but like I tell you, like even like I've talked with like I think it's Taylor. Like even he has like trouble like navigating some of like most of what like Ken says because it's so there's so much like implicit stuff in what he says. It's insane.
Magnus, what type are you
Are you
anyway? You're not an ISTP.
ISTP.
No, you're not.
I am.
Are you? Since when?
I think he is.
I don't think he's an ISTP.
I can see it. You can be an ISTP and still be interested in ideas.
No, I'm not saying you can't, but I just don't think he seems like an ISTP.
But why?
Well, I don't. This doesn't sound like polar in any of me. I mean, it depends, I guess. It depends on how comfortable I'm not really watching him being put on the spot and asked to respond improvisationally to stuff or anything. And if he's talking about stuff he's comfortable talking about, then it's hard to necessarily spot polar in I suppose. But
I think I'm pretty good at navigating conversations like where like what we're talking about, what's the topic, and like you know.
You do drop off, but it's rare. You don't do that often.
Yeah, I don't go completely silent. At least.
No, like the times it's spotted, you have some weird reaction. Like you say, like what?
I mean, Magnus, if I let's say I were to run up to you in the streets at your hometown and say, "Hi, I'm the local school district superintendent, and one of the teachers is sick today, and we need you to come in and just sort of improvise some lessons and just sort of wing it all day and keep that class learning and occupied. can you do it for us? We're going to pay you a lot because we really need to sub today. Does that intimidate you, or you think, no problem?
No, it sounds exciting in a way. It sounds intimidating and inviting at the same time. Like it's a challenge kind of thing.
Would you feel happier if they were to tell you, oh, well, we're going to give you lesson plans saying exactly what to do in each of these classes? Or would that feel constraining to you?
Can you say it again?
Would it make you happier if they said, well, we're going to give you lesson plans telling you exactly what to do in each class? Or would you feel constrained by that? Like, I don't want to have to follow this plan.
Constrained. I would feel constrained for sure.
Okay, so that doesn't sound like an ISTP to me. ISTPs, along with ISTJs, ISFJs.
You gave him contradictory things there, because first you said he should improvise, and then you told him it was not improvisation.
No, I'm saying if he's an ISTP, he's not capable of improvising. And so then I asked him a question first saying, if offered this job that requires improvisation, how intimidated would you be by it? He said, no, it sounds exciting. And then when I said, now, if instead you were offered the job and said, well, instead of improvising it all day, you can have these detailed lesson plans telling you exactly what to do, he said he'd feel constrained by that. That doesn't sound like an ISTP to me.
No, it sounds like a high TI person, because he would hate getting on board with something that doesn't make sense.
That's NETI.
No, that's TI.
TI doesn't get bored with things that make sense as long as they're... I mean, like, TI itself doesn't get bored with executing a TI-approved plan, for example. TINE gets bored with that.
Yeah.
I would say that I like if I had to, teach these kids or whatever, I do like making a plan because I want to give them, I don't want to miss something, I want to paint the full picture, and I want them to learn every facet of what I'm trying to learn them. So I would like prepare to not get anything basically.
What do you think?
See, he would prepare.
If you were given a class for 2 weeks and told you got free reign, what would you want to teach them?
Like any random subject.
You're given like a 6th grade class. You say, okay, you got this class for 2 weeks while the teacher's out getting their appendix taken out. You got free reign. Teach whatever you want. What do you want to teach them?
Biology.
Biology?
Yeah.
Why biology?
Because polar NE.
I don't know. I just find it interesting. I find the mechanics of evolution and the way the progress of things like mutations and how cells, and I just think I find it interesting how the world works, basically, which biology is one aspect of.
Evolution's bullshit.
And I think discussing philosophy would be too, like, I wouldn't be able to actually. I could do that, like, that would be my second choice, I guess, like some philosophy related.
Like, what kind of philosophy would you want to teach? Is particular a philosopher? Something about, like, epistemology in general, or ontology in general, or, like, a survey of philosophy, or what?
What would it be? There would probably be some... It would probably be related to some kind of behavior. Like, it would be like about like self-awareness and perceptions of like actions and that kind of stuff. I have no idea how to quantify it really. I would have to like. I don't know.
If I were trying to get some bugs outside of my house without picking them up, without carrying them, what are some different ways I might do that?
Without carrying them out of the house?
Without putting them in my hand at all, okay? So you can lift them, but you not without touching my skin at all. So I want to move some bugs out of the house. I don't want them to touch my skin at all? What are some different possible ways I might do that?
So you mean like taking gloves on or something? Like, is that allowed?
That would be one. Yeah, that would be one way.
Just taking gloves and put them in a basket or something, throw them out. Or you could like vacuum clean.
Okay, that's two.
I don't like. Do I just have to find out like the ways you could?
Different ways I could get these bugs out of my house without touching them with my hands.
Okay, you could use gloves, like I said, and then you could. I don't know. Yeah, vacuum clean it. You could use what is it called? I can't remember. A broom, whatever. Like I don't know. Tons of ways.
Yeah. Okay.
I feel like there's endless possibilities.
Mm-hmm. What are some different possible arguments you might make against me if I were arguing that all the countries in Europe should contribute 1% GDP to Holland so that Holland can improve the dikes?
Dikes?
Dikes. They're like walls that keep out the ocean.
He's talking about legumes.
I would say that if we had like, if it had like direct impact on our economy, we should help it. Yeah.
No, but you're tasked. You're tasked here with arguing against this proposition. What are some of the different arguments you might make?
I don't know how you make an argument like that. Like, well, what's? I get the feeling that you want me to like. There's like some kind of angle that you can take. I guess. I don't know.
Well, I want to hear you walk through the different possible angles. I'm not looking for any particular angle.
Okay. Okay. So basically, I have to stop the water from flowing in, basically. Like that's what's the purpose of?
No, listen. You and I are both on the EU Governing Council or something. I don't know, whatever that's called. And I've just gotten up and I've said this governing body should pass this legislation in which all EU states except for Holland should have to give 1% of their GDPs worth of money to Holland every year to improve the dikes. The dikes being the walls that keep out the ocean. That's the advocacy I've made. I've just made it just like that. I haven't given you any more details. And I said, look, we really should do this. This is a good idea. Let's everybody vote yes right now. Now, your job, you say, wait, hold on a second. You get up and you give the speech against this advocacy. You're like saying, no, let's not have every country except for...
I get it.
Yeah, so give me some arguments against it.
Okay, I would say that the money could be used better in certain areas. And then potentially, I could like make these arguments up, but potentially I could just make arguments as to why the money could be used better.
Okay.
That's what I would do.
So besides making arguments about how the money could be used better, what are other kinds of arguments you might negate with?
You lagged out a little bit.
What are some other arguments that might be used to negate this proposition that I've put forward before the EU governing body?
Well, also the fact that the money that is earned by the country is the money that it's the people that has earned that money. So the right of the money is for that country, for the improvement of that country, and especially when you have countries like Denmark, it's socialism. So the way our society works is that we put money into young people and then they have to pay us back. So if we use money on other countries that are not helping us, it's it's wasted money, basically. I don't know.
How many lumberjacks does it take to make a whaler, and why? It's well known
whaler,
that
what's a whaler?
Somebody who kills whales to get their sweet.
Oh, whale. Okay.
Yeah, to get their oil to burn in their whale oil lamps.
Uh-huh.
How many lumberjacks does it take to make a whaler, and why?
I don't know.
Why?
Because it only takes one to do that.
Wrong
I
answer.
don't know.
Wrong answer.
Oh shit.
Takes 2 lumberjacks to make a whaler. The reason is because being a lumberjack is half as difficult as being a whaler. Well-known fact.
Okay.
You just failed the test, Magnus. You just completely failed it. You were doing great, and then you failed it.
Yeah,
so
that
your
sucks.
type is now officially failure. Sorry.
Failure.
Neptune, what's your opinion about his type? Are you still here? Are you Gwest?
Yeah. I mean, I don't have a ton of ISTPs to compare Magnus to, but it doesn't necessarily seem wrong. Although I was also not convinced at first. I don't know.
I see way too
I
much.
think also we're in here talking about ideas, and Magnus is interested in ideas, but like I feel like a better understanding would probably be how he is in real life, maybe.
Neptune, this is
Like
realer
what
than
like
real
polar
life.
SE manifests in like a very real life kind of way.
This
sometimes.
is realer. Okay.
What?
This is realer than real life.
Well, I don't know.
This is
It's hard to
real
see
as
polar
gets.
NE when he's talking about things that he is already interested in and knows something about. So it's hard to say if it's improvisation or memory or just logical steps that he's taking. I don't know how to evaluate it.
Magnus,
I don't
would
know.
you ever become a scrimshaw dealer knowing that scrimshaw is taken from whalebone?
Sure.
Would you ever become an ivory merchant?
What's that?
Somebody who buys and sells ivory, which is taken from the tusks of elephants.
Yeah, I wouldn't give a fuck.
But elephants can recognize themselves in the mirror. Do they naturally shed their?
They mourn their
tusks?
dead. Okay, well, that's a little more ISTP sounding.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, yeah, I don't know. Like when I read the beta quadrant stuff, for example, I totally identify with that, and also especially finding alpha quadrants like a bit boring, especially in social contexts. I do find that the way we like to socialize is different. I have noticed that. So
I don't feel
that's one of the.
I don't feel a supervisor-supervisee relationship with you at all. I never have. And I do with Colin, my stepson, who's an ISTP, and is pretty textbook, I guess you'd say.
That's true. I almost feel like this is with Roman. I almost feel like a supervisor for Roman almost more than that he feels like a supervisor for me. Almost.
How do you feel about me? Do you feel like, oh, Eric, you're getting lost
like
in
I feel like I'm more on the supervisor end, to be honest.
Okay.
Like, not that I feel better than you.
No, I know. I get it. I totally get it. It's a it's a function matchup thing, right? Like, if the reason I feel like Colin's supervisor is because he's got any polar and TI Dom, and his SE second slot. Well, my 8th slot's pretty solid compared to some other slots, and so I've got sort of a function advantage over him in that regard. But it's not really an advantage. It just means that I do his nature almost as well. But then his polar is my nature, and so it's just like he's gonna seem like he's got this big blind spot in his personality to me. I'm not going to seem the same to him because my polar is his 8th.
So in general, so like when you're thinking ISTP, are you going in the INTP direction or what? Like what
For
direction are
you,
you going? Hmm.
I mean, to be honest, for as long as you've been here, no matter what you put next to your name, because you've put various things there, I've always thought you were an ENTP. I was always under the firm impression that you were an ENTP. But I mean, I didn't really put a whole lot of thought into it. I just believed that to be the case. You made any style jokes when I'm not talking, which isn't very often, but when I'm trying to lay low a little bit and be in here, you are very much at the forefront of the conversation usually, which suggests extrovert and it suggests comfort with and facility with language, making small talk or making big talk or whatever kind of talk.
I do see that, but I do think that this is just my personal assessment, or maybe I'm putting a little confirmation bias into it, but I do think that ISTPs in general or TI jumps can struggle with passive versus aggressiveness when it comes to social interactions. So sometimes they can take a little too much over the conversation, and sometimes they are a little too passive, you know?
But see, that
I don't
sort of
know.
analysis even sounds like more like third slot analysis than fourth slot analysis. Fourth slot analysis is, I mean, you're right about that, about them, but they would be unlikely to make that assessment because fourth slot FE just isn't that. It's not that sensitive.
Hmm. Yeah.
So I don't know what you are, but I'm pretty damn sure you don't have polar any. Like when I asked you the question about getting the bug out of the house, and you said, "Well, there's lots of possibilities." I could just hear, I could feel intuitively what you just did in your head, which was like, you realize I could take it out with this. I could build a little ridge. I could do whatever. I could get the bugs out in a
Yeah.
million different ways. You didn't even
Yeah,
bother listing
exactly.
them out because it was so evident to you the whole splay of ways you could spit out if you wanted to. That's not ISTP.
Hmm. I haven't thought about it that way before. Oh well, I haven't been asked that question, so I don't know.
I mean, ISTPs, I've worked with enough of them as students, and like I said, my son-in-law, stepson-in-law, or whatever you want to call him, is one of them. But they'll give you answers like, scoop it up on a paper. Okay, well, how else? What are some other ways? Put it on the paper and carry it outside. And what are some other ways? Why do you need any other ways? I mean, like, they'll give answers like that.
Yeah.
I worked with this kid who got a perfect score on the fucking ACT. One of like only a couple thousand kids in the whole country to do that. Really brilliant. ISTP. Really brilliant ISTP. You would think he was a complete fucking dullard if you were to sit there down and ask him some questions. He has one word answers. He's got no creativity. He can't improvise if his life depended on it.
Yeah, like to that, I would say that like I remember when we had to write short stories in like second or third grade. I remember a lot of people were like they couldn't write anything. Like they were just like they just froze, because it was like you have to write maybe half a page of like just a random story, and I was just banging out random fucking shit, and people were like, "How can you like write shit?" I'm like, I just didn't understand how people could not write anything because my mind was just going crazy. Like I was just writing the most ridiculous shit, like, and I don't know. That's always the thing that made me think that I was not an ISTP because of stuff like that, you know. And even when I was like 6 or 7 years old, I would write stories, just like random fucking stories about random shit.
Well, note too what you're doing right here. You're giving me SI examples that are working with your TI to sort of say, well, here's some other factors to consider whether you should excise this or not. That SI TI thing is not ISTP either. It's like ISTPs are NI, and they're NI third. So, you know, they don't like doing that kind of back and forth, ideational back and forth. They want to use their TI to settle on a consistent thing that they can then act upon and have it be the right thing in I third slot. And then fuck everybody in terms of how you present it because they don't have time for that.
Yeah. I could see that, yeah.
I mean, you seem like if you've got SI and NE, which to me it seems evident you've got front side NE, then that probably puts you alpha quadra. I mean, because your TIFE, well, for sure, I'd say, and you're, in my opinion, NESI on the front stack for sure as well. That makes you alpha. Now you say you're a little bit bored by alpha quadra. Well, I mean, there's a certain amount of limited.
Well, I'm bored by I'm bored by the I get like not gonna lie, like when Abe does his whole where it's like he interrupts the conversation to talk about something that's none of like our concern, almost like it's useless talk, you know. It's like super surface level, like, oh hey, look at this chocolate bar I just bought, you know, like that stuff, like that kind of annoys me, you know, that kind of thing. I don't know if you know what I mean.
I do know what you mean.
You know,
it's because
I hate when he like almost interrupts the conversation to talk about that. I'm like, dude, like we're talking about something that has like substance, and you're just like, you know, like you want to talk about something that has like, yeah.
Well, I mean, both the SFJs are disinterested in a lot of abstractions. Like Kimberly needs to decide to listen and try to learn if she wants to actually follow even conversations like this. This isn't especially abstract, but it's not concrete enough for her to really care about it all. It just seems like we're just filling air for no reason. Like really, basically. She can be more. She's less like that than Abraham because Abraham's an ESFJ. But the thing is, our quadramates, like ESFJs, we're supposed to go do things with them. We're supposed to collaborate on projects and stuff. Haley, this girl who's singing with me, she's an ESFJ and we work together great. When we're not working, we don't have anything to talk about. That's part of the reason why we're activity partners.
And also, yeah, and like if I have to make counter arguments against myself, like the ISTP thing, it's also like I seem very I seem very exploratory and people oriented compared to most ISTPs I know, because most of the things I like to learn about and talk about is people related shit. You know, like I like talking about psychology, I like talking about philosophy, I like talking things related to existence and meaning and all that.
Yeah, that makes you an NTP, probably. I mean,
but I also had a huge finesse for playing video games for like a ton of years where I never used my brain. Like I would never have had these kind of conversation like 5 years ago.
I mean,
like I wouldn't, because I just never opened up that, you know, that kind of, I don't know, like space in my brain where you can talk about these sorts of things, because I was always surrounded with like FE DOMs or segments like SFJs in general, and I just never dwelt in like deeper than, you know, what is around me kind of conversations, you know.
well,
I never knew it existed.
You're probably just surrounded by sensors. I also played a lot of video games. 4, 5, 6, 7 years ago, I used to play Madden and college football on the PlayStation all the time. It was like all I did. It was before I really started this, you know. I have a different experience in terms of what I had around me, which helps me to be, I think, more practiced in abstraction, which is I've been a debater since high school, and the debate community and being a coach in the debate community, all you do really is your job is come up with a bunch of ideas about how this could be argued or that could be argued or stuff, So it it gets extra practiced in that regard for me, and it's very natural seeming to me to be around a lot of intuitives. I also had a bunch of intuitive friends in high school, or at least more than most people did, I think. So I think I had a more nurturing environment for intuition than most intuitives do.
And like even now, like you're sparking some thoughts in my brain that like you always felt like English, but I can hear myself right now a little bit. But I always felt like English held me back a little bit from socializing the way I do in my own native language, because I think that the part of the fun part, like when I'm like make jokes and the way I'm funny, it's when I phrase things in like a weird way, or like have a weird word for something. Like that's what I'm all about in like my own language, at least. It's like saying like the most ridiculous words or phrasing things in like a weird way. Like
You value
that's how
novelty.
I'm funny. At
You
least.
value
Yeah, yeah.
that's valuing novelty. That's another NE thing. I mean, I'm increased. The more I talk to you, the more I stick with my original thing, which is I've always thought you were, and continue to think you're probably an ENTP.
Hmm. Just, but right now I'm thinking maybe I misconceptualized a bunch of stuff about what intuition is, and maybe I underplay my own intuition. Maybe I don't know.
Your
Maybe.
intuition ran away with you. I mean, maybe INTP, except I've always perceived him as an extrovert because I've seen him. I've seen him want to be active in the conversation most of the time he's here. And the thing is, it's like intuition for the extroverted intuitor. It's saying like, I'm going to use my extroverted sensing, what I see around me, and my introverted sensing, some random association that draws, to put two disparate things together and make something new.
You think an ISTP is capable of being the class clown?
No.
I was without a doubt like the class clown. Like there's no, like if you ask anybody that I went to like middle school or high school with, like everybody would say I was the class clown. Like no doubt.
Did you direct your attention to keeping open for opportunity to make jokes off of?
I don't know. I just like most like self-deprecating humor, and I just didn't take myself seriously, and I liked, you know, combating like authority in general. So
Did you make
I don't know. I just did
verbal
a bunch of stuff.
jokes? Did you make verbal jokes or pratfall style jokes like tripping in? Whoa,
Verbal jokes, like,
huh?
no, not practical jokes at all. It was just like
No, not
most
practical.
like I said, like
No, wait, hold on. I didn't say
like
practical.
verbal
I said
jokes.
pratfall. Pratfall jokes are like the Three Stooges, like physical clowning versus verbal clowning.
No, it was definitely like verbal clowning.
Okay, so you're not an STP then.
I'm not expressive. I'm not expressive in my body language at all. Like that's like I'm like that. I'm pretty definite in my face. Like I don't express much with my face, but with my words and stuff and my tone of voice, I feel like it has much more value in that sense. Yeah, you definitely gave me something to think about.
I think we can narrow it down at least to ESTP or some kind of NTP. You're definitely not an ISTP. You could be an ESTP. ESTPs can be a lot more ideationally active than the 8 slot would necessarily suggest, as ENTPs can be a lot more actually active than the 8th slot SE would suggest. But
even when I have to write like an essay or something, like they give me a 2,000 word essay, I can write that shit in 20 minutes.
You're not an ISTP. For sure.
That's the sort of things that always convert me away from ISTP or TI DOM in general, is those kind of things where I just kind of know that like a normal TI wouldn't be able to track out these sorts of things. I guess.
If you look deep in your heart, does TI really matter? Like, we know that we want to be able to engage in communications where the other party is using TI so we can use our tool function and make progress and stuff. But at the end of the day, does it really matter to you if something's consistent, or do you recognize the fact that if it's novel and cool and interesting, you don't give a fuck?
I would say on that question, I don't know, actually.
Because the thing is, for an ENTP, TI is instrumental. It's not an absolute value; it's an instrumental value. We treat it like an absolute value when other people don't treat it like an instrumental value. But at the end of the day, we care more about the values of TI than the specifics of it. So as long as you make some sort of effort to be fair, that's good enough. It doesn't actually have to make sense. You made an effort to be fair, fine.
I do find myself believing a lot of stuff in the moment, and then afterwards being like, ew, that was like so wrong. But in the moment I was like totally like convinced, but afterwards I'm like, fuck, you know, that's
well, how old are you?
Right, I'm 22.
Okay, well, I mean, there's a process of building up a repertoire of ideational experiences whereby you encounter enough different people making enough different kinds of statements that you get on top of it. Like, you're no longer hearing things you haven't heard before, really. So once you get on top of it like that, then that doesn't happen anymore.
But I don't know, like I thought it was an ice thing, but definitely with the English language thing, I could see how it could be like an ENTP thing, being annoyed the fact that I can't communicate well enough. It's like, oh, I wanna be funny, novel, and cool, but like my vocabulary is so low that I can't express what I want, and that's like infuriating to me. In a way.
I mean, I think you express yourself pretty well. You're able to communicate the concepts anyway. True, you're not.
Yeah, but personally, I feel like I don't fully express like the every like corner of what I want. I guess, even though it might sound like. Yeah, I don't know.
Do you care about the elegance of the turn of phrase, or just the completion of the explication? So, elegance of turn of phrase. What's that?
It's the first one you said.
The elegance of the turn of phrase, yeah. Okay, well, that's another NTP thing. Like, you know, it's obviously very important to me to sound erudite and smart and whatever, because I talk fancier than most people, and I talk unnecessarily fancy probably. It doesn't do me any good. It doesn't do me any service. It's sort of a primitive FE kind of a thing where I go, well, as a kid I developed this kind of wordiness, and I guess it probably served me well, and it became natural. It became very natural at a certain point. It ceased to become an affectation, if it ever was really an affectation. I'm not sure, but I think nevertheless it's born of trying to do FE work with on this one vector of sounding smart, you know.
It's true. I'm not gonna lie. I think I am pretty good at sounding smart without having any substance to it. I just know all the good buzzwords to make people believe the shit, I guess.
Well, I mean,
And
sounding
well,
smart and make people
I used
believe are
to
different things.
like I don't know where this comes from, but like when I was younger, I used to make up facts on the fly just for fun and try to see if I could make people believe it. I would do that all the time. Just make up random facts
I do
about
that
like
too.
how something works without actually knowing like shit about it. But the way I phrased it and the way I said it made sense. So people were like, "Oh yeah, that's cool," and I was like, "Shit!" People like, "Whoa, he believed that." Like I used to do that kind of stuff a lot.
I make up facts all the time too, but as jokes, really. Like.
Yeah. It was like a joke, but when people actually believed it, I was like, "Whoa!" Like
Right.
that was like that's interesting.
Like when Kim asked me if Chinese people really have fire drills that way. Do you know what a Chinese fire drill is? It's this thing Americans do sometimes where it's like when they're teenagers where they go, Chinese fire drill at a stoplight, and then everybody gets out of the car, runs around the car, and then gets back where they were sitting originally, And it's called a Chinese fire drill. So I made some sort of joke to Kim about how odd it is that Chinese people do their fire drills in their cars. And she said, "Is that really how Chinese people do their fire drills?" I said, "No, Kimberly." Actually, I think I said, "Yes, Kimberly," but it's like, obviously not. But ISFJs are gullible. They just are. Like Kim will show me a post, something like, "Oh my God, can you believe this? Look." And I'm like, that's a hoax or some sort of bullshit thing. There's no way that's true. That makes no sense at all. And then she'll be like, really? I'm like, yeah, Google it. And she's like, oh, you're right.
I would say I have a tendency to be over aware of people's intentions, basically.
People's intentions? In a way.
Yeah, and motivations for why they do things and why they just everything. Like I just apply that to everything. It's like when somebody's talking to me, I'm like, why are they talking to me, or why are they saying that? Like it's not. I don't actually care about what they are saying specifically. I care more about why they are even having a conversation with me. Almost, it's like I instantly go to that place almost.
So wait,
I don't know
are some of the answers to that question of why are they related to like, well, they find me interesting or they think I'm cool or whatever? Do you find it validating? Are you looking for validation? That would be consistent with the ENTP.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that's consistent with the ENTP. Because the thing is, the way you put it right there, it was a little bit misleading. But I think what you're saying basically is that when you're having conversations with people, that your absolute value is their perceptions of you, and your instrumental value is logic, and that's that's ENTP or ESTP.
Yeah, I could see like I could make up a bunch of things as to even when I'm saying this, it sounds like kind of like in anything where I'm just but like for example like in Enneagram I'm a type 6, right? And I don't know how a type 6 and ENTP would manifest, but I'd probably be like a weird mix, and probably the fact that I have like I have low self-esteem, maybe have trouble like social anxiety, that all kind of combats the extrovert nature of somebody, right?
Because what makes you think you're a 6?
When I was younger, I'm pretty fucking certain I'm a 6.
But like, what aspects of 6 do you identify with that you make you think you're a 6?
Mainly the fear and the structure-seeking elements. Not the fear-seeking, but the structure-seeking elements, and the constant questioning and the constant anxiety about my existence, basically. I'm constantly doubtful about everything
distraction seeking is a 7 thing, but the constant fear about your existence, that can leak into 7 as well. It depends how successfully you're avoiding. But 6, what they do is they seek to nest. Like, they want to, instead of feeling bad about themselves or they do feel fear maybe, or at least fretting, but then they go and make sure their house is tidy and organize their appointment book and check the bank with the bank account and see what the money level is, and do all the things you got to do to keep your nest sound and solid.
Yeah.
So I mean,
yeah, like I like it's. I don't know.
Do you have the sense that, like, well, if I just play hard enough, I'll forget about this thing that's looming over me?
Yeah, like it's hard for me because I know exactly where you're going with it, so it's kind of like, if I say yes, it's like, it's gonna play into 7 thing, but I would say I have a tendency to do that, like distract myself. Yeah, I do the distraction thing, definitely.
I mean, look, the thing about 5, 6, and 7 is they're all responses to fear. 5 tries to understand the things you're afraid of. 6 tries to prepare for winter. Let's put away a cache of nuts. And 7 says, let's bury our head in the sand. Let's fiddle away the summer days and not worry about winter.
I could totally, like, I don't know, you're making me question everything for some reason. Like, I could totally be a 7 wing 6, because like the gluttony thing, that's something I've done with. That's something I do with everything. It's pretty, like, I can't control my own money. It's almost impossible.
Whereas Kim, who's a 6,
always...
Kim, who's a 6, doesn't really have addiction issues at all. She drinks like 1 glass of wine and goes, "Woo, I'm tipsy." She does smoke weed, but she's not like must smoke all day every day like me, She does smoke cigarettes, but she's not nearly as addicted to them as I am. And
I get addicted to everything I do.
Right, me too. Anything that I like, everything that I like.
Yeah, everything I like, I get addicted to. If I like somebody, I almost get addicted to them. Like, I want to talk to them all the time, kind of. If I'm in a video game, I want to do that all the time. If I'm smoking weed, I want to smoke weed all the time. It's like, I constantly, like, overdo shit all the time. And it always gets me in trouble. And when I get out of it, it's like, fuck. Like, I totally overdid this shit. And then I feel bad for a while, right? Because I feel like I have to make it right or something. Because I kind of overplayed my hand or whatever.
It's like, well, there I went again. And fucking had too little discipline and maturity. Had too little discipline and maturity to be able to have something nice in my life.
Yeah, I'm like a fucking 10-year-old, to be honest. Not even gonna lie.
Well, I mean, I've always thought of you
as
one of the more textbook ENTPs. I've always thought of you as such. And everything you're saying to me now is consistent with that. ENTP 7.
But, I don't know, I almost want to hear Neptune's thoughts for some reason, because, I don't know.
I don't know if I see polar FI. I think INTP makes more sense. And I think I think you were a little bit wrong about the sensitivity of third slot and fourth slot FE. I think inferior FE is extremely sensitive, can make people kind of socially paranoid. So that was something you said earlier.
It's okay. It's strong, but I don't think it's sensitive. Like, it may register in strength just as much, but it doesn't make as fine a distinctions.
I mean, I'm not saying that it's not like that Magnus is not necessarily. I just don't think it was that profound of like a.
Okay, I'll buy that. Okay, you win the point. I oversold it.
But one thing I totally do not relate with is the exploring and scanning everything, because, like I said, I haven't read a book in my life. I don't know if that's surprising to you, but I haven't. I can't dedicate myself to reading a book. I listen to a ton of audiobooks, but I can't read a book. That's for fucking sure.
I mean, it's somewhat of a generational thing too. I read a lot of books when I was young, but we didn't have any internet.
Yeah, but while I'm on the internet, I read all day, but most of it is shit without substance, I guess. But I do fall into these pits of seeking knowledge, I guess, where I'll go at a week's time, and all my YouTube videos would be 2 hour long, deep philosophical videos. Now I'm gonna sound like I'm fucking bragging about myself, but that's how I go into these binges of information, and then I go without it for a month.
Here's the thing: something. If you want to carry on a conversation with an ISTP that's extended, you're gonna have to continue re-ignition, turning the ignition back on, because ISTPs stop talking, say what they had to say, and then stop, and just sit there. And it's up to you to continue driving the conversation forward. That's not the case with you. You've got plenty to say. You've always got more to say. That's definitely a symptom of any.
And we could talk all night.
I mean, INTP might be possible, but I don't know. See, what you're describing also with the binging and stuff, that doesn't sound like SE polar. Now, granted, SE polars can have addiction problems, but you're talking about getting into something and then doing the shit out of it for a week, whatever it is. Not even just drugs, but people or activities or whatever. Neptune, go ahead. Sorry to cut you off.
No, I've observed that in second slot NE, even in myself and Spacey, that's totally a thing still.
Well, like I'm saying, it's not. If it were just drugs, I would agree that INTPs can have drug problems for sure, and so can INFPs. But what he's describing is going hog wild doing something. For example, I just got into ping pong, so now I go play ping pong every day for 4 hours, and that lasts for 1 week, and then I get tired of ping pong.
Yeah.
That's an ENTP thing, not an INTP thing.
Perhaps. But I mean, I don't know. If you believe in subtypes and stuff, I don't see why it couldn't be any subtype.
I don't believe in subtypes.
And also, if he was an INTP 7, it's still going to be more of a 7 thing than it is ENTP versus INTP thing.
Well, that's true, but that's why very few INTPs are 7s. Because it's not really consistent with their function stack.
Do you think I could be faking my FI, Neptune, without doing it?
Well, I mean, you TI your FI for sure, and you TI your FE a lot too.
Where are you hearing FI anyway?
Well, when me and Magnus talk about things, he talks about himself in a way that ENTPs typically can't.
I'm pretty moist, don't you think?
Behaviors and the mechanisms behind them. The ENTP will maybe gloss over it, but they don't go as in depth, I guess. When Magnus does choose to talk about it, he's pretty capable of it's not out of touch to him. Maybe the feeling itself is, but he understands kind of why he does the things he does.
So what sort of responses or engagement that would I give you that would indicate to you that I okay, well, Eric probably has polar FI. What are some of the cues you would look for?
Mm. Well, it's mostly that you don't really have an interest in talking about anything FI. Like, whereas Magnus does, I guess, is mainly the thing. It's not that you aren't capable of talking about it.
I have trouble understanding what qualifies as talking about FI things.
Yeah, maybe I'm wrong.
I'm saying, I'm trying to understand what
no,
you're saying.
I'm having trouble. I'm having trouble understanding what I'm saying as well. It's just a feeling, I guess. I just get a vibe that it's not polar FI.
I think maybe that is because I'm more personable in a way, so I don't know.
Well, okay, let's try to narrow this down. Let's try to have an FI conversation so I can see what it is exactly. Is it just like...
Even I can do that.
It's just like, I like things, and you're like, I like things too. Or what?
See, but Magnus would never make that sort of statement about what FI is. Wow. He understands.
Look, I'm not necessarily completely that oblivious. I'm just trying to get answers without giving my own thoughts, you know?
I don't think I see it like you... what you said, though, did imply that you don't find it particularly interesting. But Magnus understands how...
It implies that I don't understand what it is very clearly. I want to know what an FI conversation feels like.
You don't understand. Like. Okay, so Magnus, you try to explain FI. I guarantee you his description of it would be different than yours. Is basically my point. Even if we don't understand it as a whole, his description is going to be different of FI than yours.
All right, let's hear it.
Wait, my description of FI?
Yeah, not joking. Like, be real.
Like, what's an FI conversation going to sound like?
Okay, so obviously FI is like awareness of interpersonal relationships, basically, and realizing the value of that's one aspect at least, but like realizing the value of like intimate connections, basically interpersonal connections with somebody else, because I think FE is mainly like community biased and social, and has includes lots of people, but it has no substance to it, where FI adds the substance to the relationships, right? That's what I think, at least.
Okay.
There is no relationship without FI, because FI brings the substance. FE is just the shell.
So if I came in and said like, "Hi guys, I'm sad because my friend said something mean to me," would that be an FI conversation?
It could turn into an FI conversation, yeah.
And like, what would your response be if I were to say that? My friend Todd said something mean to me earlier, and now I'm feeling sad.
Are you asking Magnus or me?
You. Or CJ, who's also a FI user.
Todd's an asshole.
Well, I would ask what Todd said. I would ask why it bothered you.
He said my face looked like a bunion. And it bothered me because I don't think my face looks like a bunion. And I think that was hurtful for me.
You're already limiting because now it's a physical thing. So.
Right. Well, do you want your face to look like a bunion? Do you want people to tell you that?
I'll be like, did people pick on you for the way your face looked when you were younger? Do you always feel ugly? Is that a constant thing? And he just reminded you of something you feel.
I do remember that all the children in the schoolyard would taunt me, bunion face, go home, bunion face. Does that count?
Do you believe that your face looks like a bunion?
Well, I was told that my whole life, so yeah, I do. But I don't want to.
Do you believe everything you're told?
See, even now, it's like it's so hard.
It's so
Well, because Eric's not even you're just doing like an FI impression.
Yeah, it's like a parody.
He's not even trying.
Bunion face, go home, bunion
I'm
face.
Upset that I even entertained it. Honestly.
Yeah, you're like, well, what happened? Like, what did Todd say?
So then, if you found out that that's what it said, would you then comfort me? Would you say there?
Not necessarily.
What about you, CJ? Would you comfort me?
Yeah.
Would you say there? Your face doesn't look like a bunion.
I guess it depends on how bad, you know.
How much my
bad your
face looks like a
looks.
bunion on that day?
I guess so. Yeah.
Does
If
it
your
look very
face really
buniony
did
right
look
now?
like a bunion, then I would try to comfort you.
No,
But
I think it would be harder to try and tell someone who actually has a face like that they don't. But I would try to be as nice as possible.
But okay, assuming I have a normal face, or just my normal face, which may look a little bit like a bunion, but I've never had it compared to a bunion before. But so let's say instead that I come to you with this face and I inform you that I've heard this taunt multiple times heretofore, that I've internalized it and have low self-esteem because I believe my face to look like a bunion. What would you tell me? What would your advice be?
I'm just gonna parody ENTPs right here and be like, well, bunion face disorder is a real thing, but there are cures for it. That's like basically what you would say. That's what polar eye looks like.
Well, okay, well, what do you think? Would you guys try to reassure me that my face did not look like a bunion?
If it looked like a bunion,
No, I've already set the parameters, Neptune. It doesn't look. It just
Sorry.
looks like my existing face. So if you're saying sometimes my existing face looks like a bunion, then that makes sense.
I would probably tell you that like your perception of self is your problem, and if anything is going to set you off, then it's something you just got to deal with yourself.
But
mostly.
Neptune, are you sure? How sure are you that my face doesn't actually look like a bunion?
I've never seen a bunion in real life. I can look up some Google images. But
You should.
I'm pretty sure that.
You should. If you see my face among them, let me know. Sometimes the algorithms pick out my face and incorrectly classify me as a bunion. I'm not sure why. I think there's some kind of conspiracy. The bunion algorithm's going haywire again, boss. Alright, so have you looked at the picture of a bunion yet, Neptune?
But
No, I'm not going to.
but back to the typing thing, I just in regards to the ENTP thing, I just feel like I'm just not that intellectually, I don't know, like interested. I don't know, like I don't know.
It's an intensity thing, intellectual intensity that they possess. Not that you're not. It's like you're more detached, I guess, from the intellectual realm than an ENTP, whereas it is the ENTP's world.
Yes, like I overly over-identify with ideas and like like kind of like Mark does with certain things, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like you understand both the realm of ideas and real life, which is more of like a TI person thing, to be honest. Like TI Dom, INTP particularly. Like that's why Susie is always talking you off your any Dom ledge. Oh, what's going on here?
Okay, does my face look like this? This is a bunion. Right here.
Not on a good day, it doesn't look like that.
I knew we were about to see bunions.
That's good news for me. It's the only bone deformity that rhymes with onion.
The dick.
Well, what is objectively ugly about a bunion, you know? Even if your face does look like a bunion, what is objectively ugly about a bunion?
The aesthetic beauty.
It just looks uncomfortable, I guess.
So is it pain you're concerned with, or discomfort, or ugliness?
All three. I don't want my face to look like it causes me foot pain. I don't want my face to look as though it's a bone deformity. Nor do I wish my face to be on my foot.
Yeah, this is just... You're just polar by as fuck. Sorry. Magnus isn't.
Well, the important thing is we got to cover this important topic. Because I know you've been wondering about bunions for a long time. I'd say that's about the best hour and 25 minutes long video any of us has ever been a part of. So thanks for watching, everybody. Don't forget to eat plenty of cheese.